Pigeons 420. Mr. Grow It. From the staff.
Thank you, AC Infinity, for sponsoring today's video. If you're looking for new pots, consider checking out AC Infinity's Fabric Smart Pots. Their heavy-duty material is crafted with double-stitched nylon handles and 500-gram thick non-woven fabric that makes a permeable, tear-proof wall for excess water draining and maximum stability. If you want to check out their pots, go to acinfinity.com, use promo code THESTASH15, and consider saving a few dollars and getting yourself some quality pots.
This episode is brought to you by Stash Blend. I've been using Stash Blend for over a year now, and it's awesome. One of the things that I really like is that it saves me money. It's a whole bunch of different inputs in one. So I no longer have to go out there and buy a silica bottle, then a separate seaweed bottle, beneficial bacteria, then a separate one for mycorrhizal fungi. All of that plus more is in this one blend. Go to stashblend.com to learn more about it, and I also have a link down in the YouTube description section below.
What's going on, boys? We are back from the Stash Podcast.
Back at it again.
Here we go. The Brofecta. Gentlemen, how was
In
your
person,
Timmies? How was your
again.
Timmies?
Tim Hortons, yeah. Start
out
off
to
with that.
Timothy.
We like to start off with the little off-topic stuff to get a little ease into it, right? So Tim Hortons.
to you by Tim Hortons.
We're in Canada right now, and Tim Hortons is abundant out here, and I must say I have been enjoying it. I really do like Tim Hortons. I'm usually a Dunkin' Donuts guy. I know there's a lot of people who don't like Dunkin' Donuts. There's Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts.
What about Dutch
Up here,
Bros?
it's just mostly Tim Hortons. I know, like in New York, and I think maybe Michigan, you can get Tim Hortons as well, but it doesn't go very far south, and I'm loving it.
I got a town that I'm next
That's
to,
McDonald's.
city, 50,000 people. There's easily 5-6 Tim Hortons in that city. So
Wow.
one Tim Hos for every 10,000 people.
That's like a Dunkin' Donuts in New
Right.
England.
Everywhere. Everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
They say the busiest one in Canada is in this city that I'm next to.
Yesterday, I
popping
got
every time.
lunch there, and I was like, wait, lunch? I'm used to the breakfast, right? Timbits, so good. And I got a chicken Parmesan flatbread, and I'm like, mind blown. I'm like, what? These exist at Tim Hortons? I texted my fiance that, and she's like, so you've never had lunch at Tim Hortons, huh? And I'm like, apparently it's a normal thing. It's like, oh, okay, it's a normal
Well,
offering. Nothing special
We
there.
also had breakfast at Tim Hortons yesterday. And we had, maybe you didn't have breakfast, did you? No, you did. No, we picked you up. Yeah, we some breakfast also. And we had lunch at Tim Hortons. And Meta the day before, we also got chili, I think, at Tim
And we had
Hortons.
chili for supper.
And then guess what? This morning,
Breakfast at Timmy
breakfast
Ho's,
at
baby.
Timmy's. So
America runs on Dunkin's. Canadians run on Tim Hortons.
It seems that way. Yeah, it's really branching out here. Yeah. Yeah. See, remember when we were in Vegas and we left the food up to Chris? He wouldn't let us eat the same thing twice.
Well, we did, and then I
Or
was like,
3
what are you
times.
doing? We had Houston's hot chicken, and it was great. And then they're like, let's
3
get it
times.
again. And I'm like, again? The next meal? All right, we'll get it again. And then
right.
the meal after that, like, let's get the Houston's hot chicken. I'm like, no, guys, 3 times in a row, no. We're getting something else.
We're simpletons
it's
here.
called White Trash Palette. Is we found something we like.
And we stuck
And
with
we're
it.
going to go back to it, and we're never going to divert from the goal.
Yeah, it's very
That's all
effective.
dude. Like, it's just one of those things. I'm the same way when it comes to bud, when it comes to booze, when it comes to even people. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're cool. Let's continue this, and let's not ever change anything.
It's funny how the coffee shops have changed the world, hey?
Yeah,
You know?
they definitely have. Like,
They really
Timmy's,
have. They really have.
Timmy's.
It's great.
It's similar to.
Similar. Great segue into today's
It's also
topic.
changed the world there.
Isn't it?
Weed has changed the world.
It has.
Dude, and more than just us being able to grow and smoke and la 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 la, it's the lifestyle, it's the culture, it's the impact on the psyche and the mental effect, the spirituality. There's so much to it from the beginning of time. Like there's evidence showing that man has been using the herb for a long time. But it's amazing when you step back and look at from maybe our childhood to now even, and how much it has changed the world in a sense. It's crazy.
Definitely has. It's one. I think it's like one of the most powerful natural remedies out there, untapped too. Right? We know that the Chinese were using forms of the plant for medicinal properties early on. We know that even in early American development and civilization, they were also using it for medicinal properties. It was changing the world until about 1930 when the Anslinger and the DEA essentially kiboshed and prohibited the plant across the entire international stage, and it really stifled the progress for the plant and for mankind and for what it could do for the world. Now that pendulum's kind of swinging; it's kind of going the other way now, and now we're really seeing a huge impact on individuals, communities, and healthcare.
Remember some of those old commercials where it's
This
like
one?
the
So much
melting into
cooler
the
when you're not
couch,
stoned, Rob.
or it was like, or like the frying egg or whatever. The egg is like goes on the frying pan. It's like, this is your brain on drugs, and it's like trying to stir you away from and stuff. It's like it's changed a lot since this then. I mean, that was back in like the 90s. You know what I mean? Like that's. Yeah, it's changed so much over the years.
The deflated one where Sally's just not herself.
Yeah, that was me.
We don't see those commercials
That's
anymore.
enough. We don't even record anymore. You're not yourself when you're smoking blunts to the head, Rob. Like, what? That's cigars.
Now we're seeing more and more, stoner movies like positive light, right? I mean, Half Baked was like a huge shift. I feel like. I mean, that came
Yes.
out in '98, I believe.
Well, like
And
that.
so
Was it
that-
98
and
already?
It came out in 98,
Wow.
1998. Yeah, long time ago. And then more and more stoner type movies came out since then, and it's more accepting. It's like one of those things I really feel like has helped with the acceptance around the world. Really, is having these movies show in positive light. Obviously, legalization has helped, but content creation, we contribute to the changing of just how it is kind of viewed, and that negative stigma behind it has really shifted so much just in the past 30 years.
You know, and I think people like Willie Nelson, Jack Hare,
Tommy
Bob
Chong,
McCormick, Tommy Chong. There's a lot of
Rob
influence.
CLtv.
Cheech,
ROB CLtv.
Stash Bland.
And
It's crazy.
Wink.
You know, a lot of these people were doing it. You know, even like the Rolling Stones, people that were doing it long before it was cool, and they were really jeopardizing their careers, their lifestyles, but yet we're using it to help impact the way that they created.
well, what about General Sung? 2800 BC. Okay, first documented. I had to look it up first.
I figured. I was like, General Sung?
But it's so weird when you look at Western society. We've capitalized on, but then where it kind of originated in terms of use for medicinal properties in China, in the eastern side of the world, it's heavily frowned upon. I mean, you look at even in the Middle East, Abu Dhabi, Nick Diaz was going to go there for a fight, and then all of a sudden had travel issues. AKA, they learned that you go to prison for there. You know, you get Brittany Griner when she was over in Russia.
Yep.
You know, it's like it's amazing that something that we in our society have monetized for recreational use, like alcohol or cigarettes, is so heavily regulated and looked at in a negative way on the other side of the world. So it has changed the world, good and bad, because it's like the plant was put into the same thing that organized crimes were utilizing for profiting in other countries. And so now the citizens who want to use it like us are being persecuted and treated poorly. As we're over here, we've totally found that we've taken like Eastern medicine and put it into our life for medicinal purposes and for recreational purposes, mental health, spirituality. It's bizarre that the originators haven't done that, in a sense. You think, you know what I'm saying? The people who really got into it. I know in South America, the government is the biggest issue, but like in South America, you know, they don't really mess with you a whole lot. Like you see Mr. Q down in Colombia, it's legal-ish, you know what I'm saying? But it's to the point where you have to go get your license for everything, but you're not going to get in as much trouble. But at the same time, it creates a new culture of people who then now kind of have to hide from the persecution, and it creates a community of people who then now didn't have anyone to bond with. Your common ground is the plant. And I'm sure that they have that in China and other places you're not allowed to consume. But in America here, we've created a new community of people. North America, there's Canada as well, the Americas. And now we're to the point where it's such a community-driven thing that this plant is bigger than the plant. You know, it's changed people's lives, where somebody in Indiana moves to Michigan, somebody in Arizona and Nevada are both legal, but somewhere outside of there moves to Nevada now to change like careers, lifestyles, friendships, bonds. It's bigger than just the economic impact, but America's have really capitalized more than anybody, it seems, man. More than Amsterdam, even the Netherlands. Like, we've really changed our lifestyle around the plant.
Well, you can argue that Canada has done it a little bit, but they've already federally legalized before.
Hard
the
to find
United
relos
States,
anywhere, though.
Well, that's arguably a different industry, right?
Maybe so, but it's
Tobacco
bullshit.
industry.
I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, it's the thing is like you kind of touched on it too. It's like the plant has nothing to do with how people are being persecuted or punished or essentially discriminated against. It's their government. The government has seen that it seems that this plant changes people for the better. I think it helps people think critically. It helps people think for themselves, and that to me is kind of damaging to the powers that be. Why would the powers that be want your citizenry asking questions and being intelligent and creative and inspired? So it seems like it's always been a matter of control by governments in order to decrease or eliminate the access of it to the common people. The plant will and has and will continue to change the world for incredible things in incredible ways. But it seems like it's just mankind that keeps holding it back. Think how far we could be if we were doing research on this plant since the 30s, since the evolution of science, right? It would be wicked if we knew already what we knew about Tylenol.
Yeah.
Or Tylenol is just a name of a thing, but I be whatever that
Antibiotics,
sort of penicillin.
Yep.
Imagine
Magic. Or magic too.
I just think it's crazy. I just think it's crazy. It's almost a shame. We should be ashamed of ourselves that we've let something so powerful just go to the wayside for so long.
Well, I'm here on universityofsydney.com just looking up a little history to see kind of our timeline of the plant, and it's interesting to see way back in the BC era of things, Hindu legend of Shiva, allegedly the lord of Bhang. He was the one who introduced the plant to the people because it was his favorite food. Then in 1841, William Brooke O'Shaughnessy introduced cannabis as a Western medicine to India. 1936, then Reefer Madness came out, kind of demonizing the plant, and that's where it kind of almost became mainstream. Really, is once they started saying how bad it was, is when people started knowing about it.
They want to try it.
And they want to try it. That's just human nature. Is like, oh, the Adam and Eve story. We want to get the forbidden fruit. Then in 1940s, Adam and Todd independently isolated CBD. Adams and Todd, so it's a company, not just a guy named Adam and a dude named Todd. 1970, U.S. introduced the Controlled Substance Act that lists cannabis as having no accepted medical use and high potential for abuse. 1970.
Skipped over the THC, huh? When THC was identified?
Yeah, I guess so.
I think it was right with the CBD same year, maybe? Or was it the 7? I don't know. When I'm surprised they didn't mention THC being identified because I believe it was around the 60s or 70s.
Yeah. 1992, Devane and Makalim, sounds a little Hebrew, brother, discovered anandamide. I don't even know what that means. Chris?
I don't know. Google it.
Google it.
I don't know what it means either.
Wink, can you look that up?
Look it up, Wink.
Anna and Ahmed.
Look that shit up.
By 1999, endocannabinoids were discovered to activate TRPV1 receptors. These are receptors activated by the spicy compound in chili. So, and these are like the basic mainstream studies. If a university is kind of putting this out, there may be some somewhat independent, somewhat underground studies, but these are the more independent ones. You could just type in history of Sydney, Australia, and the website should pop it up. And so, looking at this, though, this is another country. This isn't the Americas. This is an area, I believe it's fully illegal in Australia for cultivation. I think medical use from a dispensary or from a physician recommendation, I believe is legal. But cultivation, I believe is illegal. So the science can still be there, but all these studies are outside of there. 1996 is when California legalized medical cannabis by introducing the Compassionate Use Act. Yeah, so then 1999 is that, and then 2007 endocannabinoids show the active GPR55. Not exactly sure what that is. And then in 2012, CBD is shown to alleviate schizophrenia symptoms in patients comparable to conventional antipsychotic drugs. Really? How did I not know that one? But CBD is just like, man, it's like essential oils. That's interesting.
2012, another thing I'm surprised they didn't, a lot of stuff missing from here, but 2012 obviously is a very historic for the United States when legalization for recreational purposes was initiated. Right, it was Colorado and Washington. Was it Washington or was it Oregon?
Oregon
in 2012. So those two really started it all off, and then it was just 2012, then 2016, a whole bunch of states, and then it just went from there. So yeah, I'm surprised that wasn't mentioned in there.
Absolutely, this is Sydney. This is University of Sydney. And then 2016, Australia legalized medical and its cultivation for medicinal purposes. I guess you can cultivate for medical.
I wonder what the restrictions are, plant count, plant restrictions, so on and so forth. But
and then CBD in 2017 demonstrated to reduce seizures in childhood epilepsy in a placebo-controlled trial. So this just shows the missing timeline that also comes into mainstream discovery of the plant, because this is what someone who's not in the nitty-gritty is going to see as the timeline. Now, you look at that. This is in Australia, and a lot of these things that they're seeing are not from Australia, the studies. A lot are from India, America. Israel is one of these other countries that are legally allowed to do the full testing in a federal side of things. You think Canada would be one of the leading countries. Now, do you know anything about the science? Is there extra testing that people are doing here for the plant, or is it just base medical recreational?
No, we've been illegal since we were illegal right up until 2018. So if I'm not mistaken, the majority of evidence and studies that we have about our plant came out of Israel, and only because they had just about full access to be able to check the properties and to be able to do testing and so on and so forth. So when it comes to Canadian testing, I know we're doing more now, but no, I don't have a clue, to be straight. I don't have a clue.
I know that there is quite a bit going on, but I don't know exactly where it's coming from. Matthew Hill is somebody to mention out of Canada. He was actually recently on Andrew Huberman's podcast. Andrew Huberman did a solo podcast on the plant year and a half ago, 2 years ago, or something like that. And there were some inaccurate claims in that, some things that were inaccurate.
Some lies.
And Matthew Hill, who's been studying for the past 20 years, and I believe he focuses on the stress and anxiety section in particular, and how the plant interacts on that levels. But he had to refute quite a few things that Andrew Huberman said. Andrew Huberman invited him on the podcast. They sat down for 4 hours, nearly 4 hours, going through all of that stuff.
And that's the thing, is the mass of this area is, you'd think because of the size of this area that there'd be more studies and things like that, but it's a lot of rural agriculture, and there's not as many city areas where people are going to be doing this testing because it's going to be profitable, or it's going to be to save mankind.
As Canadians, we have a very robust scientific community. But in reality, it's like nobody was testing the plant because it was just illegal. It was just illegal. We were just no access to it. So
well, dude, in Israel, this is why we bought Israel. 1964 is when THC was discovered in Israel. Funny enough, the single phytocannabinoid, and that's where it was determined by McCollum and Ghani, 1964. Which that's the thing, is you don't really have to do some of the studies if the base studies are done. What more is there to study? And what financial gain is there for the science community to be working on it in other places when it's now being changed from medical to recreational in most areas? I think that was the Trojan horse for a lot of places, is to get it in. First start with CBD to get the older people to be like, well, it's just CBD. And then be like, wow, it's just medical. And then eventually be like, well, I got a little buzz off of the gummy that I got as well. And it's like, all right, well, it's recreational too. It's like, oh, it's good, it's great. But it's taking away from the medical side, in my opinion. And those studies, I think, are slowing down more and more because each state that, or each province or each area that would have a medical program, it's going to be more for a dispensary. And as the dispensaries are being less and less focused on medical and recreational, the medical community is caring less and less on the studies, it seems. At least what I'm seeing more times than not. The studies that are coming out now are more about the harmful side of things. I feel like it's almost like we've capped our benefits, even though I feel like there's more to study, obviously, especially with terpene science. That's one that is really underutilized. But we're getting to the point now with the recreational side of things, but it's also a whole new wing of monetization for states and countries that have been struggling. There's been billions of dollars in revenue that Michigan has got, and we were struggling. You know, we were the first state to have, I don't know if any other cities have gone bankrupt in America, but Detroit right away, I'm sure. But there was a recession in America and nothing changed in Michigan because, well, we already had a recession years prior. But now with a new category of monetization, yeah, it's taking a little bit away from the medical side, but it's adding a ton to the taxes for the state and for the people in commerce and jobs even. You guys notice an impact have you seen, I guess, in Canada, an impact in the economy by cannabis coming in?
Oh, of course. We make billions of dollars now a year in Canada.
Out of something that's already been here?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is always you have, when you're trying to figure out who's doing the studies, why have they shifted from science-based to now to like health-related issues? You got to ask who's funding these who's doing the funding on these
pharma.
tests. That's right. And government. You're not going to get independent studies for harm reduction, I don't think. You're going to get independent studies on the advancement of science or the advancement of the benefits or anything to just explore the plant in a positive way. That funding's decreased, or if anything, is at least not as available as the government's money. So then they're the ones that are going to perpetuate that, oh, it's bad for pregnancy, it's bad for children, it's bad for this, it's bad for that, it's bad for this, when in reality that's true, but there's also a very large there's a large amount of evidence that can prove that there's far more benefits to it as well, right? So I think it's important too. I do believe recreation has taken away from medical, but that won't be the case forever, because as we can all see, when you walk into a dispensary, 80+% of that stuff is garbage. It's overdried. It's underregulated. It's barely doing the recreational job. Forget about the medicinal job. When you've got people that are suffering from Parkinson's, or they need to use it for chemo sensitivities, for epilepsy, these people need high standard of product. It has to be clean. It has to be exactly what it says it's going to be. And you're not getting that in the recreational market. You have to get that in the medical market for patients. So I believe in a recreational market, people will be far more satisfied with garbage than the medical community should not. What is the difference between medicinal pot and recreational pot? There should be nothing.
Licensing.
Right.
I can tell you exactly.
Nothing. There should
moved
be
it from the
nothing.
shelf.
No. The difference between the plant is nothing. You hold up one bud, hold up the other. Say this one's recreational and this one's medical. What's the difference? Nothing. There shouldn't be a difference. It's weed. It's good.
But one should maybe have a guaranteed standard of it's harvested to state. It's not old. It's not expired. Like, I'd be okay getting $30 to $1 ounces you got to trim up like Wink got. As a medical patient who's handicapped in multiple ways, it should be fine quad A buds always. And shouldn't have to go through it, and some quad A looks like the pine tar and some looks like the grape gas. How, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the regulation that needs to be for medical, but I think the studies haven't shown the terpene advantage. If it passed testing, if it's got the right THC level in CBD, good. It's not showing that, oh, well, these terpenes aren't here anymore. The storage of this, like the science isn't there. There is science, but mainstream hasn't pulled it in. That was my point, thinking that recreational is ruining the medical side. And I like both. I smoke fucking, everybody.
Legalization's ruining both sides.
Well, I feel like I'm taking away from the medical patient, even being a card holder as a patient, and I just want to get stoned. And there's somebody who's like, dude, I need that flower for this, and you bought a QP today, and there's none left. And I'm like, dude, it tastes so good, bro. there should be some ground of that, and that's where you have like things like Rick Simpson oil, but this is something that is so taboo for people that it's looked at as you either get it from the dispensary or it's going to be poison. And the dispensaries don't carry these because they don't give a shit about medicinal patients so much. Caregiver programs are dying off, and in America, with Schedule 3 being a thing, there's a concern that it's going to be completely taken away from the caregivers and it's going to be medicinal. It could be good for the people, but what we're missing is the studies. All we have is studies from independents, they're good, but none of these people are government bodies that then somehow can say, well, here's this official science that everyone needs to use. It's not subjective. Your container's not adequate. How long when this was harvested is not okay. You don't call this medical unless it's this. But we're not doing the studies so much anymore. Even Israel, the things that are coming out constantly are how we can strengthen the THC more or make the plants more GMO-like.
I would actually argue that there's probably more studies being done today than there were before, simply based on legalization.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying it seems like it's for the mind of recreational.
But that's because the governments are the ones doing the testing.
And they're getting the tax money. There's just more money period. There's more money.
Rick Simpson, I like how you mentioned
until the
Rick
insurance
Simpson
companies
oil,
get involved.
Rick Simpson oil has definitely changed the world in regards to its medicinal properties.
Oh, that's not smoking a doobie. That's
Simpson,
medicine.
Yeah, Rick Simpson essentially. I'm not going to say he created, but he was creating concentrated oil and was giving it to patients for free for their cancer. And he testifies that he was able to put a little RSO on his skin cancer, and it removed it. And he was arrested and put in jail for distributing that product to those patients.
How dare he take care of people?
Can't do that.
Humans.
That was here in Canada. I believe that was on the East Coast. But it's had a profound impact on people around the world, being able to utilize RSO for a myriad of different things. Epilepsy is another way that they're utilizing it.
Major pain relief, people who have had surgery who then are dealing with opiate addiction, who then need to have something. Like there's this guy Spongy, shout out Spongy. Me and Trey interviewed him years ago, and he was badly into opiates, and it was because he had a major accident, and he was on these pain relievers, and he also used a little bit for recreational. I had a buddy who almost died. Same thing. They were like, all right, we're getting you on oxys. We're going to give you some Norcos. We're going to get you Valium while you're here because you're stressed out. And he's like, I don't feel man. I have nothing but pain. But it's because every day when we're at the factory, he's crunching back, Norcos like it's nothing. So it's gotten to the point where if people need that heavy narcotic feeling to even get the pain relief, Rick Simpson oil is one of the only things that'll give you that heavy, like too much for a lot of people. But if you really have pain, if you're going through chemo, if you've got, epilepsy, you don't have the same effect because it's medicine. It's the same thing if you take a pain pill or an Adderall and you don't need it. Somebody who needs an Adderall, they're prescribed to it. They're not like going, but somebody who doesn't, I'm like, yeah, let's go clean. What, you guys want to write something? Want to work on a video? That's the difference. I think we've gotten a little outside of the medicinal benefits, but we all are using it so often that we're getting these benefits. That's that outweighing the benefits, outweighing the negatives in a sense where it's like, yeah, it may not be great for me by smoking, but all these other things that I'm helping my body with that I wouldn't get from any other thing artificially, I'm getting by doing, utilizing this plant.
Yeah, medical reasons, one of the things that we kind of touched upon, but I think we can get deeper into is the Farm Bill, CBD, right? That was a huge change, mainly for the U.S., right? But it definitely had a worldwide impact. It was the Farm Bill in 2018 when they legalized hemp products. CBD mostly had to be under 0.3 THC. 0.03 THC. Thanks for the correction there. Also legalized seeds, right? Because that doesn't have has under that 0.03 THC. But that actually changed the world before the Farm Bill. CBD did, at least. The story of Charlotte's Web, right?
Oh, yeah.
Back in Colorado.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. It's been so long. Holy
and that wasn't included
CNN
on that
initially.
Timeline that you pulled up. It stopped at 2017. 2018 was a Farm Bill. But even in 2012, where you had this CBD heavy strain that was helping with seizures, helping with epilepsy, and people were moving from other parts of the United States and even from around the world to go to Colorado, where it was legalized, to where they could give their children the medicine in order to help with the seizures.
Yeah.
And that was a huge change. I remember them when that went viral, very viral. And then again, people were moving from all over just so they could access that particular strain, which was said to help with a certain type of epilepsy. I'm not really familiar with it. There's different types, but there's one particular type where it helped with. And yeah, that was a big change for the world, I believe.
Well, and that was when it really changed mainstream perception too, because Dr. Sanjay on CNN was so anti-this until that, and then he literally comes out and is like, I was wrong. I fucked up. Sorry. And like that to have mainstream media come out and kind of publicly say, hey, wow, look how good this is, into a story that has people crying about a little girl whose life is being saved by medicine. It's really brought people to a different perception on, you may not like recreational, you may not like skeevy stoners, but you understand, like, well, but there's a lot of good benefits to it. I can't say this with alcohol. I can't say this with cigarettes. You'd be like, well, I know you'll get cancer and people around you could have secondhand smoke, but the stress level's lower. And he seems happy. You know? It's like, no, that's not a real thing. When we look at this plant, like, the fact that you can use it for so many levels of like industrial, obviously, internal gratification and happiness, to be able to work for like depression or anxiety, pain relief, spirituality. People use it for meditation, like, you know, in Buddhism, that's where a lot of the getting Zen, people will utilize that. Even the native culture with the peace pipe, you know what I'm saying? It's brought to the point where it's changed us as humans, in a sense. Not everybody who even consumes it. It's the culture, it's the lifestyle. And the media, like we were saying earlier with Half Baked, that was all, like, Dave Chappelle allegedly didn't like it, thought it was like a bad representation. And looking back now, it's just a goofy, quirky stoner movie. But now we've got it so, like, random movies of just like random comedy movies, somebody's just casually smoking a joint, like nothing. Or they're in the bathroom smoking a bowl. I mean, I remember even as a kid, Roseanne's finding the kid's butt and they're just sitting in the bathroom, just getting all toasted. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. This is normal. Family Guy's got whole episodes of it. South Park's got episodes. I mean, they're in Colorado, but you just notice that it's integrated and it's not so weird. It's not so crazy, you know, as where back in the day, you know, even Cheech and Chong, it was exuberant, exaggerated. It wasn't like, they weren't quite as goofy and quirky probably in real life, but it's a comedy and they're playing on the stereotype of stoners or creating a stereotype. It's now we've gotten to the point where we look at this, it's so accepted. Like, there's stoners who are stoned and successful. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're able to be business representatives of life, other than Mr. No Inhale Elon Musk. You know what I'm saying? Elon Musk, even him, the stigma was enough that his people and his company frowned upon it. But the society, the world of people, that was like his first break into being cool. You know what I'm saying? And now they're like, Elon, bro. And he's a dork. You know what I'm saying? We like dorks nowadays, but it's because he hit the blunt. And that we're in a day and age where the culture is accepting it. The masses are kind of tolerating it. The masses are accepting it. The subsector of people who hate everything, drugs, they're accepting it. And I think that as long as we can figure out a way to keep cultivation alive, that's the one thing that's very subsector, that's very super niche. You know, you got Murder Mountain, the Humboldt story of people getting killed as growers or people just out there hanging out and then getting killed by growers or guerrilla growers, cartel involvement. Now it's just random dudes in their basement growing. You think that legalization has changed, like, crime?
Yeah, I was going to mention that, you know, as far as the cartels, you bring up a fantastic point there. There's less cartel involvement, particularly in the United States, right? They were heavily black markets, changed the black market. This has also created an industry, right? That's a major change. There's jobs now. There are so many jobs that were created over the past just 10, 20 years because of legalization. So this has actually put money in people's pocket, you know, financially. People are now able to put food on the table working in this industry. And I think that's so cool to see just the growth that has happened within the industry. And we're not just talking directly with plant touching, but there are things that relate to the plant, right? Begging, for example, right? We could talk about content creation.
Dude, I was going to say us. If it was illegal, completely illegal, you think that we would be able to have our faces on here doing all that we're doing and having companies like AC Infinity sponsor us?
No.
And fly us to places? Like, we couldn't. If this was an illegal thing, they're conspiring to do illegal shit. Like, that's the part that people don't think about. We get so entitled and spoiled. Like, not entitled. People are going to be like, you, free America, da, da, da. But we're going to take a portion of control, always, and some freedom. Holy shit, is it crazy where things are now, that I'm complaining about bud that's a little, not as great. And I was smoking brick with seeds and horrible stuff, but we've got
Not even that long ago.
Not even long ago. Even like Canada, where it's like in Manitoba, it's like, yeah, you can't just grow, but you're legally a medical patient. So if you do the right steps, just like, yeah, I can't have guns. Well, if you follow the right steps, you actually can get some guns. Like, there's things that in life they don't really see as freedoms, and this plant has opened up so many more. Besides financial freedom, it's just like more rights. And I know there's government restriction, but the fact that I can grow 12 plants at home and don't care, no plant count police, and I'm just like, dude, this is nuts. I got all these tents getting dropped off at my house. Like, what? It's insane, dude. It's changed my world.
I think what's changed the world too for this plant is the education that goes around it. We're learning about the plant. We're learning about how we react to the plant. It's been shown too that use amongst the youth is decreased
Not as
in
cool.
places that are legal. So we're learning who can use it, who shouldn't use it, when to use it, when not to use it, by who and when. And that's really important. That's changing the world. That's bringing people together, because now we have a common denominator that we can all kind of gather around, and that's what brings us together. It's creating friendships, and it's creating bonds, and it's something that I think will continue to change the world for much, much more time from now, because we're at a very juvenile state of this plant. We're at the very beginning. We shouldn't be, but we are. We're at the very beginning of what we can now do with this plant and what it's going to do for the culture and society as a whole. Because what it's done for me with you guys has been incredible. It's changed my world.
Gang, man.
Yeah.
Gang.
And the future for this plant is, we actually have a whole episode on the future of the plant, and that's a good episode. You guys definitely want to tune into that. I feel like we're just scratching the surface on this. I feel like there's tons of things that we probably missed. I'd love to know in the comment section below what else has changed. How has this changed the world? There are many other examples I'm sure that we haven't touched upon that you're thinking of the viewers and listeners of this. Let us know in the comments.
Even touch on how it's changing the impact of the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Or
That's good
alcohol.
pharma.
Or, we kind of touched on tobacco, but that's
for maybe a part two.
huge.
We'll
That's
see.
part two.
We'll see. But I want to give a big thank you to all the patrons, man. You guys absolutely changed the world for us. You make it happen. Without you guys, it would be so much harder to be able to make these shows happen, especially in person. Good looking out. Much
Thank you,
love.
guys.
Patreon.com/FromTheStash. And yeah, I think it's the middle tier. I forget what the name of the tier is, but middle tier will get your name to scroll on the bottom there as a thank you for your support here.
Find a tier that works for you. There's behind the scenes content, live content, all kinds of stuff that you're going to benefit from.
We're going to get some exclusive merch drops too.
We saw some of that.
And if you want to be able to get some merch, stashmerch.com. Check it out. FromTheStash.com for all episodes and all things from the Stash.
Thanks, Wink. Appreciate you,
Much love
brother.
to Wink on the ones and twos.
Thank you.
That being said, it's Rob from CLtv. Mr. Grow It. Pigeons 420, brother. We'll see you next time.
Peace.